Oh, the mask is back. Let's just get into it. Now, as usual, I'm pretty late with this, but we gotta make the predictions. This is what I do. So let's get into it. Hamdi Akwame, um, Jamal Pokes. I think this is a pretty close one, but I'm gonna lean towards Hamdi. I think that Jamal Pokes is okay, but I think the wrestling. Um, he's sort of like a Shamil Gaziev, except maybe not as strong, not as technical. You could even say not as big Shamil Gaziev, Hamdi. I think he's quite comparable. So I'm gonna say that if Shamil can do what he did to Dontel Mays, I think he could get a close 29-28 here. Hamdi. I think this is a good one. Um, Although it could be boring. Bogdan Gurad, Lucas Alexander. Uh, I kind of want Bogdan Gurad to win, and he's actually a decent underdog. Yeah, I do not agree with the amount of people picking Gurad here, though. I think they like those odds as well. They like the minus 120 on Lucas and 100 plus on Bogdan Gurad, and that's why most people are picking Bogdan Gurad, but I don't like that, not one bit. But I'm gonna go with. Mm, I think a decision's safe. I think it could definitely be a knockout, but I think a decision is safe. So I'm gonna go with a decision for Bogdan Grad. Oh man, this is one of those times where I actually don't like that it's usually I like that this event's in the morning, but because I'm so late to the predictions, I actually don't like how early in the morning this is gonna be, at least in my time zone. So yeah, I mean 13 hours. That's gonna be cutting it short. Hopefully I can get this uploaded quick enough. Let's see. Um, Mauro Breno Silva, Jasmine Javicius. I am insanely surprised at how freaking crazy these typology fans are in doubting Bueno Silva now. People forget, man. I mean, that's the most quotable, like, MMA guru line, I think. I mean, it's a Joe Rogan line, but Guru's impression of it is just top notch. And that's the impression. Uh, People forget, man. The Macy Chasson fight was close before it got stopped. So Macy Chasson's pretty well rounded. Before that, it was Raquel Pennington. It was actually close in my eyes. I thought she won. Raquel Pennington won 3-2, but it was still like, that's competitive. So I think that Bruno Silva. I think I'll actually go with the sub in this one. Probably round three. I think Jasmine, honestly, she kind of looked like what was it, Ariana Delipsky or something like that. Let me just double check. Yeah, Adriana Lipski da Silva. Against her, yeah, she did good, absolutely, but there were moments where it's like, okay, yeah, she's low level in comparison to Judah Vicious. If she fights someone higher level, that's going to be problems. And, also, it's uh it's a strength thing. I feel like Bruno Silva is much stronger, and we know that she's willing to use tainted supplements since that Holly Holm fight was overturned because she got caught for something. So I think she's going to be much stronger. And Judavicius, Jasu Davicius, I feel like she's looking really good against a certain opposition that's just not this level. I think that Bueno Silva's just going to have a huge strength advantage. And Ariana Delipsky was just gassing. I feel like Judavicius, Jasmine, she's actually in moments in that fight, she was gassing a little bit. Not gassing, but she was tiring in moments. Now she got that energy back and eventually got the finish, but I'm gonna say that that's the reason why Bueno Silva gets this. Also, Bueno Silva 2 fights ago was fighting for a title. Now she's on the prelims. That's kind of crazy. I must say, early prelims as well. I must say that's crazy. Although her last fight was a loss, to be fair, but still, I mean, even despite the fact that she hasn't had a win in a while, or haven't had a win in a while, it's still crazy that a couple fights ago she was actually almost a champion. Anyways, round three sub I'm going with Demir Hadzovic and Terrence McKinney. I want Hadzovic to win because Bosnia. I like Bosnia, but I think that I don't know why he accepted this fight. Maybe because he had to. Otherwise, the UFC was like, okay, you're not really a draw at all in any sense, and so we could just either give you Terrence McKinney, who is a terrible matchup for you stylistically, or we'll just cut you from the promotion. I think that that's what the UFC did here because I don't think that he could have sat out for a better option because it's just he's already sat out for what is it? I mean, maybe it's not his fault, but he sat out for it feels like 2 hours. What? 2 years? Yeah, more than that. So it's not good. He's it's not that at the end of the day though. Let's be honest. The reason why 92% of people are picking McKinney and it's mostly KO, which I'm going to be doing as well, is solely because against these lower level opposition, whom have been KO'd, have been submitted, have been finished, and don't have a shiny record, who are young and new up and comers, these guys who have like that sort of 50-50 record, the Mike Breeden type, these guys who shouldn't have been in the UFC, who came in on short notice, 8-1 guy, I think it was Brendan Marote. It's these guys who come in on short notice or have not so great records that he kind of walks through. It's the prospects that he has a hard time with. And I know that um, Drew Dober was a guy that was actually here for a while in the UFC, but it's a different guy. He was experienced in a better sense where he's fought some high level guys. Demir hasn't really fought that next level. So I think that it's also these big head guys. I went and saw the weigh-ins. Terrence McKinney's head is always smaller than his opponent. That's just how it is. But against these guys like Demir and Mike Breeden, it's Mike Breeden, right? That I'm talking about? Yeah. It's against these guys that he ends up KOing quick. Maybe because it's a big target, easy target. So I just think he's gonna land a quick 1-2 down the pipe against Demir. Unfortunately, I think he just doesn't have the chin, similar to what do you call him? A steamroller, Matt Frivola. That's right. I just think it's a chin thing, and athleticism, speed, all these attributes go to Terrence. So even on the ground, he has some. I could see him having some success. So Demir just he needs to rely on the fundamentals and try and win a decision here, or maybe he'll just throw a big wide overhand to get the fight finished early. That's the only way I could see him getting this done, or just being ever so slightly more technical, winning at 29-28. But it's not a good one for him. It's a uphill battle, I must say. And Shamil the Blab Gaziev, he's back. The menace. The title run is starting now. That should be his nickname. I mean, everybody knows him as the Blob. He might as well use it now. He might as well use that nickname. Um, it's a great nickname. It really is. It's a great nickname. It really is. Okay, Tom Aspinall. Anyway, though. Thomas Peterson, he looked small in the weigh-ins, I gotta be honest. He really did look like a fat 205 pounder or a fat, maybe even middleweight. He really does, Guru and Lucas Tracy and some other guys, they say that, some of these heavyweights that have a belly on them, they look like overblown light, not, yeah, light heavyweights and middleweights, and it's really true. It really is. Not like a lightweight, but a light heavyweight or a middleweight. They really look like a blimped up one of those. So, yeah, I don't think that Thomas Peterson's winning this. I think he's just going to get out strengthed. I think there's a chance that Shamil could just ground and pound him. But I think Thomas Peterson is skilled enough to get out of those bad positions, similar to Dontel Mays. It's also not a skill thing necessarily. It's just the fact that Shamil is kind of not the greatest cardio. He's also, he's the blob. He's Shamil the Blob Gaziev. So, yeah, that's ultimately how I see it going. I think it's going to be a 29-28, probably actually 30-27, maybe two 30-27s and a 29-28 decision for the blob. I hope he actually becomes a real contender because that would be even more funny if he was a proper contender. And Khan Ofli and Muhammad Naimov. Now, this is not a matchup that makes sense. It's one that's a layup for Muhammad Naimov because Naimov just came off of a short notice fight in which he got subbed against Jungle Boy. I forget his actual name. Let me just see if I could get it. Felipe Lima. And, Khan Ofli, on the other hand, I think he got KO'd in his last fight, and it wasn't even the UFC. Okay, well, it was, but it was his first fight in the UFC. I'm pretty certain of that. Yes. Now, it could have been short notice, seeing as it was just coming off of a regional promotion, but it's definitely not good to see because, the KO factor here. Muhammad Naimov has some power, and we know that. Now, he is a bit of a decision merchant because sometimes he hasn't found the right shots to put the guys away, but he has dropped people numerous times in the UFC, and we've seen that, especially against. Now, I understand that he's a really a bantamweight that has packed on the weight to get to a featherweight because he doesn't like the weight cut, but Nathaniel Wood really felt the knockdowns and he got dropped a couple times, I think. So, and then he dropped Naimov as well, but that's just because of his skill factor, lighter man skill. He had the speed, it's just that the cheating was there. And if he got a point deducted, I'm referring to Naimov, that could have been a draw, but that just shows the skill of Nathaniel Wood coming from bantamweight, coming up a weight class. That really shows the skill. But ultimately, I think the skilled opposition goes on Naimov's side. So I'm gonna have to say, also with the KO being a factor, since Konofli had a pretty nasty KO done to him before, I'm gonna have to say around two KO. Probably TKO though. I could see a nasty KO though. It's just because I don't think that the shots that Naimov will land will quite be enough. They're more like what Luke Tracy, not Luke Thomas, Luke Tracy, the goat, the real goat, of predicting. He's going to. It's like what Lucas Tracy says, He's I actually forgot what I was even saying right now. What was I saying? Thud. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Blah, 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 blah. I can't speak. I can't freaking speak. I'm leaving this in. I don't care. I don't have time to edit. But it's what Lucas Tracy says. He's gotten thud. Thud. That's what I was trying to say. I was stumbling and bumbling. I think that's a Lucas Tracy thing as well, stumbling and bumbling. He has a lot of those catchphrases, but nevertheless, he has thud Muhammad Naimov, but he doesn't really have that one punch KO power. So I think it's going to be more likely, actually, the more I think about it, it could be successive rapid punches against the fence that ultimately leads to a TKO with the ref stepping in, possibly a little early or premature. And Micah Davis and Faraziem. I was initially going with Faraziem, but then I think back to Claudio Puelles. Man, I cannot name these guys. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just stumbling and bumbling in these videos sometimes with the pronunciation, with the names, whatever. We're getting into it, okay? Faraziem, he's just too he got taken down quite a few times looking back at that fight against Claudio Puelles. What's going on there, That's not a good sign. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I know that he's a slight favorite on the actual betting lines, but Davis in the Tapology fans' eyes is actually, it seems like he's actually not picked as much here. He's actually an underdog in that respect. And he's not too much shorter, actually. Against Frivola, Frivola looked Matt Frevola looked kind of small, so I think that Mike Davis being 6 foot is going to play to his advantage here, and he's not that much smaller, not that much lesser in the reach. So I think that this is going to be decent. I think that Faraziem is going to end up having the advantage in the feet, but it's only going to be so much. And I think that Mike Davis looks strong. He looks built in the weigh-ins. I think that this is really going to show the potential that Mike Davis has. He's only number 39 ranked because of the fact that he's not fighting enough. But if he does, I mean, this is number 19 ranked for SEM, you know? So I think that he for sure has to get a ranking if he wins here. And I think he does. I think this is a really good fight, but ultimately I think that Farazian getting taken down by Claudio Puelles a few times, actually, not just once. I understand that that's an old fight, but still, it's only like 2, 3 fights ago. Fraziem getting taken down multiple times in that fight against a guy who is mostly a leg lock merchant. Um, he's not a takedown guy usually. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. Uh, I think it's not good that a jiu-jitsu guy who's not good with takedowns, who is decent on the ground when he gets you there. Yes, he is decent, and his leg locks are pretty good, and his actual subs are not too bad. But he's kind of a specialist with the jiu-jitsu, so that's not good. Mike Davis is more of a grappler all around. He's much more well-rounded, so I kind of have to go with Mike Davis on this one. I think that he's just too strong, and so I'm going to say a second round submission for Davis. And then Vinicius Oliveira versus Said Nurmagomedov. I'm going with Vinicius Oliveira. I like how in his last 2 fights he showed that he could wrestle and that he could defend takedowns. Now I don't like how flashy he is in these fights sometimes. Sometimes he just tries to go for the flashiness instead of being technical. Sometimes he likes to taunt and he likes to go for like these weird little showboating moves. I don't like that for him. Merab can do that because he can spam 50 takedowns no problem. The GOAT, Merab, you know? He's going to take down all these Nurmagomedovs no matter which one comes to fruition. Whichever Nurmagomedov comes to the top of the division, he's going to take him down over and over. But I think that Vinicius Oliveira is going to stop this guy in his tracks. Now, Said Nurmagomedov, I have seen a lot of his fights. He does have a nasty guillotine, and that's going to be a problem if he gets Vinicius Oliveira down. And Vinicius Oliveira does let his back expose sometimes to these good grapplers. But what we can't deny here is he's going to be the far superior striker. He looks so good on the feet against Ricky Simone. He looked like he did have a bit of a moment where his leg buckled in that fight, I think, but otherwise he looked good, really good. He had really good eyes, really good movement, upper body movement. He didn't really rely on his defense with his guard, but he relied on his upper body movement, his head movement, and that worked to his favor. Now I understand that Said Nurmagomedov is a much taller, closer to Vinicius Oliveira sort of build, but it's also a similar idea with the grappling. So ultimately, I think that it's going to be close, but I'm going to say a 29-28 for Vinicius Oliveira, where Said controls the grappling for a decent portion of probably the second round. Vinicius Oliveira has a good first round and a good third round. I think that he's very much overlooked in this one. People are overlooking him again. Against Ricky Simone and against Sopaj, he was being overlooked. I don't like that, and I like his underdog status again. This is the third time I'm picking him as an underdog, and if he wins this one, he's seriously got to get in the rankings because these are three decent grapplers. And Said Nurmagomedov, it's a Nurmagomedov name, you know. He's a name merchant like Nurmagomedov Umar. That guy was a name merchant. Let's be honest. He had some good skills, but he was mostly a name. You know, that's how he got that position. Let's be honest. So yeah, I mean, Marab showed that he's. I mean, Marab really showed. I know I'm going on a tangent, but he really showed that you know you can't just get to the title off of the name. You got to go through 2, 3 other contenders, and only then are you worthy? You got to show that you earned it. Corey Sandhagen, yeah, that was a great win, and I understand that there wasn't a lot of really great options out there. But Piotr Jan did show some improvements, so I wouldn't have been upset with him getting the title shot. But Umar is really really good, and it truly shows how good Marab is that he beat him. Um, I am gonna make that video talking about Marab as a goat of the sport soon enough, but it's gonna happen. It's just, I've been busy, and I have to make this 13 hours. Gotta go fast. Gotta go fast. Moving on. Jairzinho Rosenstrike and Sergey Pavlovich. Sergey Pavlovich. He's a great fighter. I've already fought him. And I've knocked him out. You're right on that part, Tom Espinal. And on Sergey Pavlovich, I think that he's got the reach. I think people are underestimating him far too much. You got to consider that the reach is far too like a 6-inch reach advantage on the feet is not going to be good because Jairzinho Rosenstrike doesn't have the grappling to go to, and he doesn't have the speed or reach that a Tom Espinal or a Alexander Volkov have. These are things you gotta take into consideration. People are massively underrating Sergey Pavlovich. I know it doesn't seem like that since everybody's picking him, and yeah, in that department they're not underrating him. But it's the idea that this could I could totally see this being like a 55%, 45% close fight. This is a close one. I'm just leaning Sergey Pavlovich, but I could totally see Jairzinho winning. I honestly, 9 times out of 10, I think Sergey beats him. There's this one chance where it's maybe Sergey is just not as technical and he just gets out jabbed, but the reach of Sergey, I just don't see it. I think this is going to be another round one KO in spectacular fashion for Sergey. You got to have attributes. It's like what Conor McGregor said. You got to have some attributes. You got to have size. You got to have reach. You got to have some attributes. If you come in any way equal to me, I'm going to rip your whole head off. He said that in the Eddie Alvarez win, and that's true, right? With Sergey as well. So round one KO, clear. I see. I don't see it being that close. I like Jairzinho, but I just don't see him having any massive advantages other than maybe the jab. Maybe. Shara Magomedov, Venom Page. I have gone so back and forth on this, and even the fans have as well, because I think initially it was Magomedov 56% actually, and then it changed to Page having a slight advantage here on the fans' topology here. I think that the reach advantage for Michael Page is really good as well. Although that's not what I'm basing this off of. I think that the overhand rights are so fast. It's insane. I've never seen an overhand right so fast. I mean, maybe in the flyweight division, bantamweight, and featherweight, but those are divisions that he'll never make. So comparative to his size, I've never seen someone so fast. Shar Magomedov's pretty close, but he's not quite. And yes, he does do a lot more things to stay busy. He does a lot of flimsy kicks, a lot of flimsy jabs to stay busy on the feet and get the score points, get the scoreboards, get it tallied up. But I think that ultimately I'm going with MVP by decision. I could totally see a KO. I could see around 2 or 3 KO, just the damage building up and the overhands because those are some nasty overhands. But I understand it's Kevin Holland that, he was landing those overhands on and he has a good chin, but ultimately I think that Shara has the good enough chin. And I think that, I'm so conflicted because I could see like a robbery decision just off of Shara being more busy. But Michael Page, I think his counter game, his the fact that he's going to land the bigger shots and in the scoring criteria, that's just going to be much better for him. I think that the point fighting from Shara isn't going to be enough because he likes to throw these like flimsy leg kicks, flimsy push kicks. People talk about the teep kicks of Sean Strickland, but I think that a lot of what Shara does is really flimsy, and I think that it's not going to be enough because Michael Page is going to time that so well. He's going to time the spins, he's going to time the kicks, the flimsy jabs, and the one eye for Shara is really not going to be good for him in this fight because he's going up against a really, really, really good striker in Michael Page as well here. So it's really hard to it's a tough one to predict, but it's also hard to not think that Michael Page is gonna win this with his wealth of experience and especially in striking as well. I think Shara Magomedov certainly is gonna have his moments, but I'm gonna see I think a 29-28 29, 28, 30, 27. I could see that. Similar, I could see this kind of similar to, um, no, I don't know what I was saying. I was gonna say like a Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vittori kind of thing, where it's like some people say it's a masterclass, some people say it's actually closer than it is, but um, stylistically, it's not the same. And yeah, Robert Whittaker, Marvin Vittori, two different matchups. Although on that topic, like why was Marvin Vittori and Paulo Costa in the talks for Sharamagomedov in his second fight? He at the time had some kind of massive privilege, and I think that this fight is gonna show that it was kind of undeserved. But I mean, maybe he'll prove me wrong. And last but not least, Nasruddin Imavov versus Israel Adesanya. I think that I was really, really, really surprised seeing how big Imavov was in the weigh-ins. I think that that is insane. And, Adesanya has that 35 curse, although it's not for the title. We got to keep that into consideration. Um, but we got to look at some other things. I understand that the reach is there for Adesanya, but I mean, you got to look at the experience, you got to look at the fights, you got to look at styles. We've seen, I think that MMA has done a really good breakdown on this. We see that the leg kicks are very much there for Adesanya against Imavov. We see that, yes, the boxing is there for Imavov against Adesanya, but you gotta understand the range to get in, the tools to get into that boxing range. And what we see is Imavov doesn't have those tools against Adesanya specifically. Now, if he does end up changing it up, if he's sort of like DDP in that he's a really good game planner, or his coaches are, then maybe we'll see something. Maybe we'll see something special from him here. But I think that Adesanya is going to look pretty vintage here, although not quite. I think that this is certainly a tougher matchup than a Jared Cannonier, than a Marvin Vittori. I think that he's going to win by 48-47. Now, ultimately, the leg kicks, it's it's going to be too much for Imavov, I think, to handle. It's going to be a 48-47 for Adesanya, because you got to take into consideration the fact that Imavov sometimes I didn't like him in the beginning of the Cannonier fight and the duration majority of the Sean Strickland fight. In those instances, he was backing up a lot and he was giving them space. And this is not what you should be doing. This is not at all what you should be doing against Adesanya. You got to take into consideration. I know I've said that like 10 times, but you really got to take that in this fight, that the leg kicks, you got to take to heart that it's not going to be pretty. Him not being able to find the distance, not being able to close the distance, and ultimately, I think that it's going to be very hard for him to find those pocket shots, get in the distance, and I think that he could drop Adesanya. I really do, and I do think that he has a takedown threat. I don't think like what is it, Kenny Oki? Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but I don't think that it's impossible for Imavov to get a takedown here. But on the other end, I also disagree with Guru that I think that it's a major hole. I think that DDP is just super strong, and Adesanya has been improving on his grappling, and you have seen that time and time again, actually, as he's fought every single title fight that he's been in. I feel he's improved massively in the grappling. I mean, you saw that he took what is it, Alex Pereira down, and we've never saw that before. We've never seen him engage in the grappling in such a fashion. Defensively in the DDP fight, he looked great, and then DDP did look gassed, and you could attribute that to his style. It's part of the game plan, whatever that might be. I think that Imavov is not the grappler that DDP is. He's really good. He's technical, but he's just a level below. He's just that level below. And so I think that he could get the back of Adesanya, but it's all about that like range game. It's all about that void that someone like a Corey Sandhagen talks about, where you got to find the space, and Adesanya controls that space so well with the leg kicks, the jabs, And Imavov allows for that space to be given to Adesanya too much. If you see these past fights in his career against smaller, less rangier guys with a less long fighting game, with a lesser height and a lesser reach, I gotta go with Adesanya here. I think that Imavov will find his moments in the pocket because I do think he's more powerful. He's more strong and accurate with the hands, but with the leg kicks, it's just you can see time and time again he doesn't handle those well. So I think that he's gonna have moments, but when they're in that void, Adesanya's gonna control it so well for the most part. So I think I'm gonna actually have some good underdogs here, and I look forward to that. Let's go for that. Um, Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll have that Merab Davalishvili GOAT video out. I'll have another one out just after that. I'm going to get back to my uploads as usual. I'm sorry I've been slow, but vacation, time with family, Christmas, still, even just after New Year, still, I've had some other things, busy work. But trust me, I'm going to get back to it. Like, comment, subscribe. Masked MMA out.